people to be kind. So marriage again and family was this school of teaching theology around basically. Of teaching people that their goal, their purpose is to be self-care, to come outside of themselves. Well, she likes to even say that as a child gets to the age of about 7 or 8 years of age, there's something that kind of happens in their maturity, you could say. And it's at that point that they just realize that their parents really are not perfect. That it's not about them, that they do need to share with the person next to them, that we do need to learn to love other people, to be kind. So marriage again and family was this school of teaching theology around basically. Of teaching people that their goal, their purpose is to be self-care, to come outside of themselves. Well, she likes to even say that as a child gets to the age of about 7 or 8 years of age, there's something that kind of happens in their maturity, you could say. And it's at that point that they just realize that their parents really are not perfect. And up until that point, in 7 or 8, they kind of look at their parents as God. You know, they don't really have a mature understanding of spirituality in the same way that we do as we get older. And so they start to see that their parents are, man, they love a lot. They seem to like get messes everywhere. You know, there's this mentality that happens when you're like, man, these people are cool. Well, and at that moment, the Fulton Sheen says, is a pinnacle moment in a child's spirituality and their development. Because again, they're searching for what is true. Who is true? If it's not my parents, then who is it? And it's that moment, of course, if a child grows up in a family of faith, that they're given that their God, that Jesus Christ is your truth, the person that you will follow, the way, the truth, and the life, and that's where their spirituality develops from there. Okay, who wants more judgments? So much more profound than Fulton Sheen. Okay, so this is, if Dan was here, it would be so cool because he could tell the story of how we met, and he would make you laugh really hard. But not, so can we look up? So Facebook post, number 13. 5-year-old son Daniel looked at me all serious. You know, Dad, now I'm thinking that China speaks English. So really, dear, I mostly said, but in addition to my speech tournament redemption, there was another important moment. I was at a high school football game. I was in Council Bluffs. I was talking to some guy when I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned and looked up at a tall, beautiful girl, early blonde hair. She sort of sneered. You know what? She said, I really hate you. Now let's be real. This is a girl, and I know as well, me. So if she had ever spoken to me before, that knowledge would have officially understood it me. But as it was, we had never met, and that's what I told her. And she shook her head. No, I really don't like you at all. And with that, she turned and walked away. Totally weird, but man, she was pretty. I don't remember the name of the guy I was talking to that night, but I sure remember her name. It was Teresa. Yes, I said I hate it. The very first time. Everybody asked me why, and I say I'm afraid. I don't know why. I don't remember. I graduated at the top of my class. I was captain of my football team. I led the treats. I was respected by fellow students and teachers. At graduation, I won an award, along with my friend Carl. That was my high school's version of the Boy of the Year. At 18 years old, I was accomplished. I was going places here. I was certain to be a success. And honestly, I didn't really care. I just wanted a girl to like. Sometime after graduation, my friend Megan and I decided to go to a local lake and do some swimming. Megan was going to bring her friend, Teresa. And yes, you guessed it. This is the famous Teresa who hated. But Teresa and Megan were best friends, and Megan was dating my good friend Matt. So worlds were colliding. We had a great day swimming, and then later hanging out at Megan's house. And just as Megan was about to take Teresa home for the day, she got called to work. Would you mind giving Teresa a ride home, Megan said? Not at all, I said. And so I drove Teresa home. It took a while and gave us plenty of time to talk. And although it was an awkward conversation, it was good 20% less awkward than normal. So that was good. She told me where she was going to college and that she was going to be a nurse And she talked about how she loved taking care of people and animals. And in fact, she had nursed a stray animal back to health that was her family dog, moving over. Turn here, she said. And I came right into her neighborhood and she kept talking about the animals when all of a sudden she screamed, "Watch it!" I slammed the brakes. But it was too late. I heard the thump thump as I hit some sort of an animal. I climbed in her car and together we went to check on whether to find a hit. It was a cat. It lay helplessly on the curb and it was there. The last few blocks at least is not moving to the area.
Terrible.
This book is so funny sometimes. People just make me laugh. The calm before the storm. I'm not calm. I wish I were. If I were calm, then my children would be calm. If my children were calm, and then they would not yell at me all the time, and I would not go through each day feeling like I was about to have a brain aneurysm. Never today. Well, I'm calm in certain very limited situations. I'm calm playing sports. I'm calm when people die. I'm calm when sleeping. But other than that, I wear my initials on my sleeve, easily excitable fellow. I'm the wrong guy to ask to cut the blue wire when defusing the bomb. My wife's favorite memory of my not calmness happened in early marriage. We had an argument and I was sleeping on the couch. My wife was not a very sound sleeper. At the time she was pregnant, so she was even more not a sound sleeper. In addition, a bike had recently stolen out of our garage, so my wife was really anxious about getting it out of the way. So there I was, down asleep on my couch, when my wife comes running in the bedroom. Someone's trying to steal something out of our shed. I went from a dead sleep to running at a full sprint in his white tigers. And I ran towards this strange ivory car in our curb. And I dropped every version of an F word you could possibly think of. Wow, you pounded. Wow, the car as hard as he could. And before the car pulled off, I started pounding on the passenger side window with both fists, telling those mother bleepers to get out of the mother bleeping car. I hadn't even thought it all through. The people out of the car, 2 girls, 2 guys, probably college age. They were all shaking. One of the girls started apologizing. The guy ran from the shed trying to explain, honest, I was just trying to take a piss in their dog.
Wow.
Okay, so this gets real now about sex. Let's talk about. Okay, I'm gonna read this one. All right, Facebook's post number 83. I promise they don't make this stuff up. Tonight at the dinner table, I told the kids how I had heard a wise man saying that you should let your kids know each day how much you love their children. So I wanted to take the opportunity to let them know what an amazing woman I thought Teresa was, and that I knew she didn't feel quite the same way about me, so it wasn't quite as amazing for her. To which Daniel threw down his fork and said, "Not on, Dad. I bet in your whole life you made like $1,000. Conversation when you chatted that again, and you've got really fat text. I really tried to get a conversation in that direction. When Rachel wiped the spaghetti from her mouth and said, "And you could really use some bracelets." I'm telling my dear wife, all that is important. I'm not going to give a whole theological treatise on why, but for married people, it's important. We all know it's important. But sex is different for men and women, and it means different things. The traditional cliche explanation is that women have sex when they feel love, and men have sex to feel love. It's very important, very important. Makes sense to me, although I'm sure there are wild variations of this from couple to couple, from person to person. But I feel fairly safe in saying the following. The majority of men probably don't think they have sex enough. And the majority of women probably have husbands who don't think they have sex enough. Men and women seem to count things very differently. My wife can't remember anything from ages 0 to 39. True. But somehow I'm supposed to trust her about how many times we've actually had sex. She claims we've had sex many, many, many hundreds of times in our marriage. That's rich. I think we've had sex somewhere between 8 and 12 times. Yes. As usual, the truth self-worth isn't it? It's weird. You go into marriage and you think, we have this big blank canvas of life. And she thinks about stuff like children, a house, and planting a garden. And I think about stuff like, we get to have sex all the freaky You can't. And then one day, you're married, in a marriage, it happens. You're pregnant. And everything changes. Because children start doing what they were brought on this earth to do. Ruin their parents. Actually, they ruin their parents' sex life. It's crazy. The thing that is so fun, sex, also creates these creatures, children, who make it much more difficult to have sex. Once you are married with children, long gone is the young lady who thought you were awesome enough and good-looking enough to marry. She's now a mother. She's got a 14-pound baby attached to her nipple and plenty of shit to do. You say that? That's recorded. Okay. Grow up a little. Your wife slowly gets more used to the idea of touching her again, and things are rolling. And one day she actually wants to have sex with you, and bang, you're pregnant. It turns out that the time each month when your wife finds you lawfully attractive is the time when she's most fertile. It's like people want to take children. And then the clock starts again. But this time, in addition to the 14-pound baby hanging off her nipple, your wife has a toddler, a cute yet insane organism that you've never encountered before. Your wife spends her time thinking about a bigger house, a better garden, and a new dishwasher. You still think of having sex with your wife. And on it goes. Eventually, you and your wife figure this stuff out. It takes time, but as you both mature, you figure out some kind of rhythm where you both enjoy sex. But here's the problem. By this time, you have lots of other forces keeping you down. You have now a teenager. The mom and I were exercising, excuse me, has worked only 16 times. You have older idiots who come on your door at 11:30 at night because they need to know if we'll be washing their shirt tonight because it's the only shirt they can wear. And pretty please, can you do that? Your options at this point are really two. The obvious one is to wait until everybody falls asleep, which if a teenager in the next room doing homework and talking with friends, it's often midnight. Your wife never stays up until midnight. And when you do get that rare opportunity, when it appears that everybody is actually asleep, and when your wife are both awake, you still have to adhere to the absolutely not one smidgen of noise policy that your wife has instituted, because otherwise she can't handle it mentally and she turns into a pumpkin. In summer, at the beginning of marriage, when you have sex all the time, you do, and there's excitement. But honestly, the sex isn't that great because you haven't figured it all out yet. And then years later, when you do sort of figure things out and the sex is really good, you can't ever have sex because there are 1,000 children living in your home. You resort to desperate measures like encouraging your teenagers to sleep over at a friend's house or stay out late.
Oh my goodness.
For 11 years. You want to explain to her that her idiot brothers won't be asleep by then, and that it would really help Dad if I didn't have to pick her up until 11:30, because that would provide him with a very precious but important. Then of course she refused. And so you dream of the day when all the kids are out of the house and you can have sex whenever you want and you won't ever get pregnant. But by then the sex won't be very good because my wife will be more interested in why so much hair is growing out of my ears and having sex. And speaking of ears, she didn't think my ears could get any larger, but they ain't. They did, and crap. We should go visit the children because the grandchildren need to see their grandma and grandpa. Like they all know what it's like to be young and married, and our kids need a night out. Oh, we got the basic. Okay, so that's my husband's version. Because you guys are guys out here. And I mean, again, you're so different, but complementary. And you do figure things out. There are a lot of years of marriage where figuring this out is kind of hard. And here's the deal. Again, my talk was really supposed to be about contraception. I can talk about contraception my whole life. I mean, I think there's no way in and out, but it's not really what I want to talk about. The church says contraception is sin. And sin basically, you just put it in a nutshell, it's missing the mark. Okay? It's just missing the mark. And you gotta know the target, right? First. And what I wanted to talk about is what's the target? Why are we all trying to shoot for it? And this is the target. The target is everything that Paul's machine says about sex and marriage. This stuff, again, and he does it in his own way. And if you can get sometimes through the language stuff, what he says is, I always say it's like he takes stuff that's super theological and turns it into pancakes and butter for you. You just eat it all day. You can't. Love is primarily in the will. Not in the emotions or the glands. The will is like the voice, the ministries by it. The pleasure associated with love, or what today is called sex, is the frosting on the cake. Its purpose is to make us love the cake, not ignore it. The greatest illusion of lovers is to believe that the intensity of their sexual attraction is a guarantee of their gratuity of their love. It is because of this failure to distinguish between the glandular and the spiritual, between sex, which we have common with animals, and love, which we have in common with God. And marriages are so full of deception. What some people love is not the person, but the experience of being with. The first is irreplaceable, second is not. As soon as the gland ceases to react with their restraining force, couples who identify emotionalism and love think they no longer love each other. This happens all the time. But the easiest and most ample place that it happens, they give an example, it would be in home. Right? How many times do we see two really good looking people end up being attracted to each other? They were probably married to somebody else, and all of a sudden now that Hollywood couple's divorced and married to leaves. What is their marriage going to be? It's this thing. Glandular thing they're talking about. The emotionalism, the romanticism of love. It doesn't have that great target, right? That idea. This is why Christianity gives us so much in terms of truth. From another point of view, sex seems apart. Love, the totality. Sex is biological and physiological and has its definite zones of satisfaction. But love, much like it includes all of these things, but is directed to the totality of the person love. Again, we want to remember that the person that we love is not an object to use, right, for our pleasure, but that they're the subject of our life. Love speaks to the flock and its purpose. Sex concentrates on the mainspring and forgets its mission to feed time. Love includes sex, but sex does not include. This is, if anything, you just always remember this. And this is truly like why contraception just doesn't make sense. Because it basically is completely shutting out that idea of the Trinity, that we are revealing that inner life of God. And the Trinity is our imprint, right? That this divine image in our heart. Contraception takes out the Holy Spirit. It puts a barrier between you and your beloved. It takes three to make love. For lover and beloved are bound together on earth by an ideal outside hope. But love itself starts with the desire for something good. This is all of the internal longing that we all have. God is good, God is being, and therefore has no deed of anything outside himself. But we have needs. Creation may be described as the introduction of a verb to love. You are all called to be able to have. You're all called to strive for this. All right. How much time? What time is it? 20 now. Okay. I've been thinking about how do I tell you ping pong? Besides my little shame. So how's marriage like ping pong? What's going on? You can't go along. You can have a regular weapon, not so much fun. And in ping pong, you would always play to the lowest ability to the players. For example, when I go to Okoboji every year with my kids, we always have this game in our area where this ping pong table. And my little children want to play ping pong. I'm not good at ping pong. I'm not terrible either. Children are terrible. It's never fun playing with a child or anybody who was terrible at playing ping pong. You're always going to be now at the lowest level of ability to play. Not super fun. So remember that in your marriages. You both have to practice and get really good at ping pong in order for your marriage to be successful. It's a never-ending back and forth until somebody takes their eye off the ball. Again, what is the ball in a sense? It is just what we talked about tonight. It is that idea that there's a purpose, there's an origin first, there's a purpose, there's a destiny for all of you. Your marriage is all of these things. It's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of steps or a little steps if you think, depending on his truth that's in the book. It's all of these messy things, but it still is always going to have the same target, which is your ultimate destiny to love. And this is why the church is right. The church wants your profound dependence. And even though sometimes life is hard, sometimes watching my 8 kids pummel each other on a daily basis is hard, I am happy. And I am at peace because I know I'm looking at God. And we, my husband and I, Dan, and just you can tell, if you want to read the whole thing, which again is just super easy to read, it's like chapters of 2 pages. You can get that on Amazon, Japanese. But he's a messy person, I'm a messy person, but the other people are God's trying to fix. Through our marriage being a separate. The last thing he told me, he was writing papers tonight for Craig's out. We're actually going on our 20th anniversary vacation tomorrow. No, I don't know why we chose Santa Fe, except that we thought probably a bunch of college people wouldn't be going to Santa Fe. So maybe we'll go to Santa Fe. We're really excited about it. So he has to get all of his grading done tonight so that we can go and feel relaxed on our vacation. So he said to me, basically, he could summarize kind of what God wants for us. So he was talking about things like gospel readings and the transfiguration and St. Paul's reading. Basically, he says, God wants you first and foremost to be merciful because mercy is God's greatest attribute. So in everything that I do, when I talk about birth control and perception, all those things, like never in judgment, always in mercy, always wanting to speak truth in love. But remember, mercy is God's greatest attribute. You are called to mercy. Secondly, you are called to be pure of heart. What does that mean? You are called always to be seeking God. Basically, to love God with all your heart, and of course, to love your neighbor as yourself. That is ultimately the second most important, right? And thirdly, you should always be seeking what God loves and avoiding what God hates. Sometimes that can seem really easy. Sometimes that can seem very hard. Chastity is something I have to live out every day, even in marriage. It's not like once you get married, like you're never in the confessional anymore for sexual sins. The sexual sins is like one of those things, right? Like you have to go to the confessional for. This is how you know sex is the biggest deal ever. It's because it's the one thing that we're all in the confessional for. Because again, it is all this hype, this obsessed culture that we have in sex. It's the reason they're so hyped up by it, why we're so overly obsessed with sex is because it's a truth, right? It's a half truth. But there's a reason why we keep focusing on it, and why we're trying to get the target of it. But it's hard. It's really not overly hyped sexualized culture. But there is a truth there. Again, see what God loves, enjoy what God hates. It's coming. We all know. All right, I would love to take any questions. Obviously, I talked a lot about theological things and philosophical things, but I am happy to answer any questions about sex, contraception, women's health stuff, whatever. I can read more of Dan's book. If you don't have any questions, But whatever, we'd love to take some time to think about. Yes. Can you tell us about your job a little bit? Yes. And it was. Yeah. So again, I work at two healthcare clinics. They're both Catholic. One is right over here across from St. Mary's, called St. Thomas Institute. I've been there for 20 years. What we do is, again, we provide, say, holistic women's health, restorative women's health. And we specialize in infertility. St. Paul's Institute is nationally known for treating people all over the country. So in my job, I see patients physically in my office for all sorts of things like PMS and irregular cycles and PCOS and ovarian cysts and acne and all that kind of stuff. But I talk to patients on the phone every day who are all over this country. So we see patients from all over the country. Probably about 50 to 60% of our patients don't reside in. And then at Santa Maria, it's in Kentucky, I practice clinic, and I specialize in women's health at Santa Maria, and they're 2 days a week, 3 days in football. Both of those are just, again, regular healthcare clinics. We take regular insurance. So, you know, you have anybody can come there. They do everything very traditionally in terms of medical care, except again, we don't use contraception as a medical treatment first and foremost, because, and I can tell you a story. I was at the Focus conference in Phoenix. Was anybody there in Phoenix? That's not why we're. Because I'm in there too, and I was at that thing called Guidance Star Project. I'm on the National Board for Guidance Star Project, another movement in holistic women's health. And I talked to what felt like hundreds of women, young men. At the end of that day, that in particular, I can't remember what day, it might have been Friday, Thursday or Friday, after talking to so many women, a healthcare clinic called Marine Star OBGYN that was right there in Phoenix got 11 calls from people who talked to us at that booth. 7 of those were young women who wanted their IUDs out. And 5 of their, was it 4 or 5, 4, were like calls for other services. 7 young Catholic women. Now, these are the most bright Catholic people. This is the leadership. So what I'm saying is that these women were using these mostly for medical reasons because they were never given alternatives in women's health. Again, I think there was one young woman that came up to me and said, when I was 14, my mother took me into my OBGYN's office and she, said to the OBGYN, my daughter needs to be on birth control now. And she went on the phone. And she came up to me at the age of probably 20, whatever, 19, 20, 21. And she said, can I go off again? Not sexually active. Had only been put on it because her mom really, I assume, thought she might become sexually active before her to have an unplanned pregnancy. Not really sure why it was. She wasn't really sure. And I said, hold on. I said, I said, get to know the real hormonal you. When I say that hormones are everything that we are as women, I am not joking. For example, before I came here, my husband, this is no joke. I had like 3 or 4 of my kids around me, and I was nagging about something because I had a certain part of my cycle that nagging is like. He had 3 or 4 of the kids around me, and he said, "Hey guys, all of you go to mom right now and start tapping her on the shoulder." And they did. And I can tell you that it's kind of like, you're kind of like, I want to say rage, but. And I to my 16-year-old, I'm like, so and he's like, no. And I was like, he was talking about like PMS. I'm thinking, my 17-year-old, I'm like, do you know what PMS is? And he looked at me like, again, I'm going to no. I don't know what PMS is. I talk just not all the time. But again, women are their hormones, right? And this whole thing about, my husband will joke that half of our children were born in hotel rooms. Or that's close to true, but not so true. But what happened in our marriage is that we did like try to get away trips, but we used natural family planning. We didn't figure this out until after the 3rd baby was born. Conceived in a hotel room. Then you have to like remember where you were going to be at in your cycle. And again, there's something beautiful about women and their hormones that when they're going to be fertile, or do this thing called ovulation, which is like a superpower that women have, right? They release pheromones on their skin. And that is a signal to your husband, any guy, that you are ovulating. And it makes them attracted to you. And I'm not joking when I say this, they've done studies on strippers. Strippers who are naturally ovulating and not on birth control will make twice to 3 times as many tips. Because again, God created us with this like incredible power to come together as kids with this power. It's like fire, you have to really take care of it, right? And not let it get out of control. And know what your purpose is. But these hormones are real, and I want every woman to know that they don't have to be on birth control for a medical reason. That there are alternatives, and that's the type of things that we offer. It's not always easy. It's not always like living on birth control is like a perfect yet. You can just outstanding woman is on. Okay, very much. Thank you. That's my answer.
You mentioned NFT. Are there any figures in that kind of realm right now who would be really good at providing a basic understanding and working his way up from there? Because I have like a fundamental, but like, yeah,
Yes, and we should do another talk where I just talk about the basics of
sign me up.
yeah. I'm gonna do the letters and really cure in ways, but I would love to come give a talk, whatever, and we can go through the whole thing. Here's the cool thing. In the last like several months, the CDC was petitioned to change certain statistics on the way the actual effectiveness of fertility awareness-based methods. So, you know, those of us who are kind of out there talking about NFP, the term we're trying to use mainly for the secular world is fertility awareness-based methods, FAEMs. Not that it might certainly still be used, but you might hear that term. And when you go to the CDC, you look at the effectiveness rates of masculine any, they've been changed to reflect current studies in NFP, which show that natural methods to avoid pregnancy and achieve pregnancy are highly effective. So, for example, I work with the Creighton model system developed by Pong. It's 98.6% effective to avoid pregnancy. Syndrothermal method has the same effectiveness. We have done our PET method, highly effective. Now, the principles around fertility awareness-based methods are all the same. It basically is using the biology of the human body, particularly the woman's body, and the fact that a woman is only fertile for a very small amount of time, only 3 to 5 days for a cycle. And even that, her egg only lives for about 24 hours. So there's this really tiny window of fertility that if a woman just understands her body, she will know whether she's fertile or infertile on any given day. That is the nutshell part of it. But yes, the cool part is that there's movement in the free organic world that kind of supports us in the world of natural planning. One of my favorite people to listen to read is a woman named Jolene Brighton. She wrote a book called Beyond the Pill. She speaks to my heart, but yet she's totally pro birth control. But she talks about all of the risks of birth control and all of the different things that women deserve informed consent around in terms of using these methods. But so she's definitely into an organic natural method. So that's great. We've also got the first FDA approved form of birth control that's completely natural. It's called the Natural Cycles Act. It's a thing that like takes your temperature kind of on a continuous basis. It was developed by 2 Swedish neuroscientists and it is approved by the FDA. But it's like that is huge. Now, the time when we look at birth control, when we talk about birth control, you only think about it in one way. What am I doing to stop a pregnancy, right? That's a contraceptive type of mindset. So when we as Christians talk about a natural way to avoid or achieve a pregnancy, we call that true family planning, right? That's different than somebody using birth control might perceive it. And this is why contraception is completely linked to abortion and abortion rights. Why we saw contraception start to be widely used, why abortion skyrocketed. Because if a woman believes that she is doing what she can to stop pregnancy, and it fails, her responsibility to that child goes down, and the crisis would be because she did what she thought she was supposed to do. She used birth control. And now that it deeply connects her to the next step. But that's the good news. So yeah, I mean, the effectiveness of natural methods are great now, and there's no reason why a couple who morally believes that this is the right way to go, this is the right target to the head. cannot have 2 children, 3 children, 4 children, 5 children, whatever the family of your dreams is, using natural. I was talking to somebody who was 8, which when I'm speaking to engaged couples that are 20-some-year-olds getting married, kind of problematic sometimes. But I do my best to try to educate. This is not only the right option for them morally, but it's the right option for the woman in her health. I mean, as women, what's feminist about having to put synthetic hormones in your body that are truly just steroids? They're just steroids that affect everything. They suppress your entire reproductive system. Nobody else has to take a pill to suppress the entire functioning system of their body. They have to insert foreign devices into their body. They are implant things into their arms surgically, all in the sake of controlling their fertility. Is that really feminist? So what is best for women? And this is where women, you need to be empowered. 1, know your body. Know what this stuff means. Know what cervical mucus is for the love of God. Understand your body and be an advocate for your own health and be an advocate for other women. We can change this. No one else can. Doctors will not. It is you as women standing up in front of your doctors and being like, I'm in my body. And no, give me another alternative. And no, what are the side effects of that treatment? You have the choice to do what's best for you. One more. Yes.
I was just going to say that real quick comment. Thank you so much. I know people who have worked with you, I have worked with you personally, and it's great for what you do for this community. I'm just going to throw this out there. So many who have questions on this, please come talk to me about like what this is like as a man, how this functions in the marriage, how people are chastening now, but also through marriage. So if these are questions that you have, please come talk to me about this. More than welcome to answer it and share it. I've been servicing getting on asking you to do a bottom or gender specific.
Yes, especially you guys. You have a voice too. And women have kind of in some ways messed this up. But you have a voice. Your voice deserves to be heard. You love women. You respect women. Women know that. Please use your voice. Speak up. Show that you care and respect for her health, for her wellness as well. But we want that. We really do as well. And in this society, it's been, you've been told that that's not right. Thank you so much for being here. Oh, this is really important. I have a few little information things. My business card is over here for anybody who wants it. These are my top period tips. My relatively target. These are at the focus conference. So, but still, I say this a big stuff about it. So all you guys are going to want this card. So grab it. This table is good. Like again, I'm happy to take any questions, personal questions.
So just a reminder that we're going to have the third speaker next April. So keep your eyes up for that and just put your together for Tuesday.
And we have 3 eligible bachelors who are more than adequate for that purpose. Let's meet them. And here they are. Fellas, good luck. A former Golden Gloves champion, bachelor number 1 has little difficulty taking care of himself in any situation. In addition to sporting events of any type, he also enjoys the discotheque scene. We'd like you to welcome Lance Rimmer. Good luck, Lance. And an actor who has been seen on such series as The Name of the Game and Mod Squad, bachelor number 2 is also an artist working on his first one-man show. He's from Studio City, California. His name is Joey Hooker. Joey? And bachelor number 3 would like to be a professional motorcyclist. He's a parachutist. He enjoys scuba diving. He was born in Johnson City, Tennessee. We'd like you to meet Paul Knuckles. Good luck, Paul. And that's all I can tell you about our bachelors for the moment. Now, to prevent our young lady from hearing the introductions of our gentlemen, we've been keeping her isolated off stage in a soundproof room. Let's bring her on stage right now. A former beauty title holder, she creates beauty of her own on canvas, and as an accomplished artist and sculptress, she hopes to open her own gallery. She's from Corpus Christi, Texas. finds relaxation in many outdoor sports. We're delighted to welcome to the dating game, Farrah Fawcett. Hello, Farrah. How are you? Nice to see you. Now, Farrah, we have three gentlemen whom you'll be questioning, of course, and from their answers, you must select the one you think you like the best, all right? Okay, let's start with a hello and see how they sound. Bachelor number one, would you please say good evening to Farrah?
What was the name, please?
Farrah.
Farrah.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, Farrah.
All right, number two, how about you?
Hi, Farrah.
And number three.
Hello, Farrah.
All right, Farrah, they are all ready to have your questions? Okay, have a seat right here. Make yourself comfortable. Find out all you can. And gentlemen, good luck.
Okay, thank you. Number one, what is your favorite smell, morning, noon, or night?
My favorite smell is morning because it's so crisp and clear.
Okay, number two, same question.